I'd like to start out by asking what might seem to be a question with an obvious answer. But if the answer was obvious, I wouldn't be asking the question. So let's start with the big picture. Why are niche services that target audiences like African Americans or an African diaspora, LGBTQ or Southeast Asian diaspora audiences necessary? Deshauna, you want to start?
Sure. I'll go back to like my origin story in a way. I remember subscribing to the mainstream platform everyone has a subscription of, and I was relying on the algorithm to find various stories. And it was really frustrating for me because I couldn't see the stories I wanted to see. And so I think that's a problem that a lot of Black people, we're looking for our stories in a way that it's not Black suffering, Black death. In 2020, everything that happened with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, for instance, like a lot of platforms said, here's our Black section to honor George Floyd, and they were showing Tours a Slave and the Green Book, and a lot of stories that really focus on Black trauma and Black suffering, Black death. It actually compounded the issues we're seeing in the community. It wasn't for us, we didn't need to see that. We wanted to see celebratory type stories. And so for me as a Black founder of a Black streaming service, number one, my goal is to make sure that when people come to our platform, especially look like me, that it's a safe space for them. They're not also being traumatized. So we actually think about them, and it's not just because someone dies. This is my job 24/7, 365 days a year. Like this is my community. It's not just because it's Black History Month. I always tell people when March 1st hits, we're still going to be talking about these stories. We're still going to be onboarding these Black filmmakers for a lot of the platforms. When you look like right now, it's AAPI month, right? So once this month ends, okay, Pride month. So like then the API content leaves the front, and then and then the Pride content comes to the forefront. That's not how we operate. For us, it's all year round. I think it's important for us to have these niche platforms because for a lot of people who are of color and who are diverse, they see it as just like marketing, right? They just see it's like, oh, this is just happening for 1 month, and so you only care about me for this 1 month. But once the next month hits, then now it's the next flavor, the next diverse flavor, and our goal is to be different from that.
Damien, you want to?
Damien, I think you're...
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's the same thing, like you mentioned, like Pride Month. Like it's ironic, like Pride Month for us, because we're the only fast-enabled platform targeting in this kind of space. We see almost 40% of our year's revenue in that 1 month, right? And that's not by choice. That's just by happenstance because, look, the bigger, I call them the horizontals, the major streamers and other just advertisers in general and the audience sees it as an editorial moment, like Black History Month or Hispanic History Month or Asian Pacific Islander Month, right? But what we're trying to kind of go, I think what, Quelly TV and like Redbury, we're trying to go beyond is like, we're 365 days a year, right? We're talking about cultural stories. We're talking about what our culture looks like, and we're trying to uplift and show positive depictions and stories within our own community. And look, we still do have editorial moments where we uplift during Hispanic History Month and Black History Month and Women's History Month. Those stories, we try to keep them all positive. We don't really have things that are super negative. Like Deshauna was giving the reference to that some of these other major streamers will do. Because we're taking advantage of them just like everybody else is. But the difference, I think, is to get the consumer or the advertiser to really want to watch all year round. That is the most, that's the KPI for marketing, it's the KPI for our programming team. How are we gamifying the user to like not just dive in June, but to really be exposed and be excited about everything else that we're releasing throughout the rest of the year.